All right, as soon as class ends, I will send this out to you. This is the form that I created originally. It was for a class last year, and it didn't have the field set on it, so this doesn't. But you know now how to create a field set if you want to. You can see how the stuff lines up. By no means is this beautiful, perfect. There's a little bit of formatting in it, so I will send you this as soon as I get done with class today. And I'll probably try to center the buttons on the screen too. This is centered, so you notice that is centered on the screen, and maybe that looks bad. Maybe I didn't want to center that, but again, I think you get the idea when you take a look at it, okay? So you'll have all that. The other thing I'm going to send you, and I've got to fix it up because this is one of those things. Sometimes last year was a weird year, as you know, last summer, because we were going through the pandemic and everything else. But before that, you know, we are actually under contract here for basically 52 weeks a year, just so you know. The school I used to work at, come May 15th, you didn't have to step foot back in there until August 15th. So you were off for 3 months. I would usually come in a couple days a week, but there were people there, they took their laptop with them and you didn't see them for 3 months. That's not how this place is. The point is, what I would do is I'd come in here sometime and just say, today I just feel like doing this. Okay? So this is something that I created. I'm going to show you a few things from it because it'll allow us to get into or transition into the next chapter. And it was a site that I made after the Blues won the Stanley Cup. So when you go through here, here's the home page, and I'm going to knock it down to 100%. There you go. So here's the home page. You can see it has a couple of different YouTube videos on it. All right. It's got an about page, which I got to play with the, I didn't set a thing in there to make the images the right size so that the quality isn't great in there. But you notice it's got even a little selector, etc. there. It's got a contact form on it. Here I did take the time to make that so it's centered, like it made them the size of everything else. All right, and it's got a thing in here. This will allow us to transition into JavaScript. It's called Next Year. So you were supposed to guess that if they had 82-game season and 16 games minimum in the playoffs, how many games would they win? All right, so the idea, so I'll put in here 70. All right, and I click check yes. Your guess of 70 was too high. So it just came up with a random number. That's all. And I can reset it. As you can see, I can create a new number, new random number, etc. The other thing I did in here was, like I looked at it before, it's not totally correct, but I made it at least semi-responsive. So I'm going to knock that down to about here. And if you look, I've even got a thing in here that will show you your current screen size. So now this is 575. It's done very simply with JavaScript. I'm going to cut it down a little more. I want to make it around 400. So it's 500. For some reason, it's not letting me go any shorter than that. But you get the idea. And like I said, it's at least semi-responsive on here. I didn't like the way it all looked. But there's the home page, and it's not terrible. It does react pretty much accordingly. Here's the About page. Here's the Contact page. I should have made, as you can see, I should have made the text a lot smaller, but I didn't. So you can see how that got screwed up. All right, and there's the Next Year page. So like I said, it's not totally responsive. It's not terrible either. You can see stuff that would have to be fixed in here. I'd like to fix that up and then give you that as well. All right, that won't be done today, but I'll try to do it fairly soon. So with that said, let's jump into the next chapter. And the next chapter isn't going to take that long. We will be done before 10 o'clock. All right, the next chapter is on basically adding audio and adding video onto here. Now, the easiest way to add audio or to add video, and you all could do this like that right now, is to just put a hyperlink into it. You know, that'd be the easiest way of doing it of all. But if you do that, you're not really embedding it inside of your page. If that's your desire to do that and just put in, you know, maybe for that, like that Blues parade, maybe I wanted to put a link to the whole parade that was out there. I could have done that, but if you're going to do that, then at a minimum, as you can probably guess, you should come in and say target equals underscore blank to let, to open that into a new window. All right. And most of the stuff, although the tags are different, most of the stuff that we'll say in here for audio applies to video as well. All right. Or I should say that most of the stuff for video applies to audio as well. But a lot of times, too, people have podcasts. All right. Literally, you don't see them, you just hear them. Maybe you've listened to podcasts before. You could just put a hyperlink to somebody's podcast. Now, if you're going to do that and it's not your podcast, of course, you should get their permission to do that. All right. Same thing with videos. Just like with images, if you're going to link to some video that's out there someplace, if it belongs to somebody, you better get their permission. Otherwise, you're asking yourself, for trouble. All right. So that actually was your introduction. We'll talk a little bit about codecs. Now, when I go and create something here, it gets created, with the software that I'm using, the Camtasia, it gets created as what's referred to as a Camtasia project file. Camtasia is owned by a company named TechSmith. And so it gets saved as a TSPROJ, a TechSmith project file. And then, as I'm doing right now, I go in and I produce these files. When I produce these files, one of the things that gets created is a .mp4 file. Now, .mp3s are audio only. .mp4s are audio and video. Then I take those MP4s and I push them out to my YouTube channel. All right. So again, not a long chapter, 20 pages in length. So they've got in here common types for video and for audio. I'm not going to read these. MP3 is the most common audio type. MP4 either is or is becoming the most common video type. All right. I don't know what is the most. You can go in there and take a look yourself. I'm sure you can look that up and find it out if you have an interest. One of the things over time is not all of the browser manufacturers have agreed on what should be used when you are creating these. This is a thing, I didn't do this yesterday, but you can go out to Can I Use and you can check for support. In other words, you could type OGG in there, OGG, which is one of the ones that's here, and see what browsers do or what browsers do not support that. And you'll notice the stuff that's in here, as it says MPEG-4, typically called MP4, all right, says loosely based on Apple's QuickTime media type, although movie trailers, etc. It's the one that I've got. OGG, usually found with an OGG extension. OGG's important because if you look on there, it's open source, open standard. It's the one that they'd like everyone to use. Now, over time, unless this has changed, and it very well could have, Microsoft was the one who didn't want to play nice with people. I know that's a surprise. But they didn't want to use OGG. And there were other browsers, too, that didn't want to. They came up with their own that they wanted to use. Now, notice there's WebM. As it says, it's relatively new. It's currently supported by all browsers except Safari. If you go out to caniuse.com and you type in WebM, my guess is Safari probably now supports it. I don't know. I don't care enough to go look. But just so you know, if you want to do that, you can. So those are the common videos. Here's the common audio. You'll notice not only is there an MP4 for video, there's an MP3 for audio, there's an OGG for video, and an OGG for audio, there's a WebM for video, and there's a WebM for audio. All right? And usually there are converters online. So for instance, let's just assume for a second that somebody sent me in some kind of a video presentation and it was in OGG format. And let's say for whatever reason, my system did not support that. There are codec type of converters, usually free ones online. You put in, so let's say it's called mystory.ogg. I put it in there and I say I want to convert it to WebM or let's say to MP4. And it'll just make a copy of it. It's not that it's just changing the extension. It'll change it whatever it has to change internally. I don't know if you know this or not, because I've had people tell me this. Hey, all my files on my website, all my images are .pings, but for some reason one of them was a JPEG, so all I did was change the extension. Yeah, you can do that. And normally it will work. But you're better off going out to the internet and finding a free converter to go to a ping type of format, if that's what you want to do. All right. So if you want to read more about it, as it says, there's the media type. There are audio media types. There are video media types. Okay? All right. Video codecs and audio codecs, this is heavy type of stuff. In other words, typically, it's not the kind of stuff you'd really care about. So it says there, what does the media player do when it plays a video? It determines the media type. It determines, does it have the codec in there? And codec is short for coding and decoding. So it's able to understand the format that you're using. All right. It says, do I support that? If it does, it decodes it and it displays it on the screen. If it's a video file, it displays it, in your speakers if it's an audio file. All right. And those are some of the more popular codecs that are shown right there. So again, if you want more than I just showed you, they say compressor, decompressor. I've heard code, decode. It depends on the book you read. It's not really that big a thing. So just like, again, like there's video codecs, there's audio codecs. Feel free to go and read this. If you did and you looked at it, you came back, hey, did you know this? I'd say you know more about it than I do. All right? It's amazing when I started using this Camtasia product that I use, people would come up to me and say, how do you do this? How do you do this? I say, I don't have a flipping clue. I knew just enough to get by. And if there was something special I wanted to do, I went out to TechSmith's website. You want to, pardon my French, but you want to piss people off, you tell them, why don't you just go to the website and look it up yourself? People love to be talked to like that. So, the support in current browsers, again, where it says no, my guess is if you went back and checked, most of it would be yes right now. All right? So, and again, notice the biggest culprit, i.e., no, 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 no. That could have changed over time. Okay? I don't know if it has or not. I really have absolutely no idea. Now, encoding media here. There are certain things that you can put in here too, just so you know. In other words, if you are going to take the trouble to go in and you're going to embed, let's say, a YouTube or your own presentation, you probably want to add the word controls to it, so it's got controls. Otherwise, if they go to that page and there's no controls, they can't adjust the sound. They can't turn it off. They can't fast forward it. They can't go backwards if there's something they wanted to see, etc. They can't do any of that stuff, where they very well might want to do some of that stuff. So here they talk about some of the encoders and how you can go back and forth between different types of formats. I don't know. I mean, I've had people who have taken classes with me, and they have got a Macintosh that they use for their main machine, an Apple machine, and they've told me they never had any problems with any of my videos. That's what I care about, when I'm doing this stuff. I don't care what kind of a machine you have. I don't care what kind of format I'm using, as long as I do it and you can see it. That's what I care about. All right. And I really have never learned any more than that. Okay, so they mention here, and we'll see this in just a minute, it says how you can use the object and embed a media type in a web page. For years, this was the standard way of doing it. And you'll find some websites that still do it this way. They use this object tag. When you use the object tag, there are a bunch of fairly long, or at least one fairly long parameter that you have to put in. And most people don't like to do that because it's easy to screw it up. All right, and I guess this one, here's an example. It's not bad. But today, rather than using object, when you're doing video, there's a video tag. When you're doing audio, there's an audio tag. And that's what they're going to show next. Not that you can't do it this way, and I respect the fact that Muroc put this in, because what happens is today there are still sites that use older tags. All right? Why? Because they're in there and they work. You know, and just because there's a new tag there doesn't mean that a working site wants to change to that tag. That's why when things get marked as being deprecated, typically they're deprecated forever. They're not like us. We're all deprecated. All right, we're all going to expire at some time, but supposedly these tags never will. Okay? All right. There is an embed element, another common way of doing this. And notice here's an example. Well, a couple of examples. Come on. There's one for audio. There's one for a YouTube video. All right. And there are a lot of ways to do this. Just so you know, there are a lot of ways to do this. A lot more than they describe in this chapter. Just so you're aware of that. I'm going to show you one in just a moment. So here's the new HTML5. When I say new, within the last 10 or so years. All right, this is the recommended way for you to do this today. So here's some of the attributes that you can use. Let's just quickly look at them. Source, well, of course you'd want that because that's what you want to play. All right. Poster, as it says, it's supported only by the video element. So what it'll sometimes do is it'll show you a picture. Literally, it's based off of when you went to the movie theater and they had a new movie coming up and you saw a poster that they had in there. All right, that kind of thing. Preload, as it says, one of 3 possible values. It tells the browser whether or not to preload any data. All right. Autoplay to start it up as soon as you start. Loop, which will literally, if you put it into loop, it'll play forever. All right. Muted, hopefully that makes sense as far as what that is. Controls, as it says, it displays the control toolbar underneath. I already mentioned that. The width and the height, this is something you might want to set. All right. So they're showing you a couple of examples in here. You notice how big it can be. This is a good example, this middle one, because what this says is, okay, come through here, and I've got this in 3 different formats. I've got it in MP4 format, I've got it in WebM format, I've got it in OGV format. What happens is your machine will basically, for lack of better words, will come in, and as soon as it finds one that it understands, it stops right there. It doesn't look at all 3 and say, oh, I think I'll take this one. No. And they show you another example of doing it for audio. All right, and finally, again, they've got a web page, as it says, that offers both audio and video. And as I've mentioned to you previously, I'm saying it again, they're only showing you one way of doing this. I'm not going to say it's the only way. I'm not going to say it's the best way. It's a way, and it should work. So here would be either a podcast or an audio clip right there. And here would be either a YouTube or something else. All right. So as it says, the web page offers both audio and video. The audio is a brief intro to the speakers. The video is on the selected speaker. The poster, as it says, displays a static image in place, and that's this one. That's literally a poster image. Do you want that? It depends on what it is you're displaying. If you're displaying a clip from a movie, you probably don't want a poster in there. All right? Because you want to show the clip. As it says, the control toolbar appears when the page loads and while the video is playing. There's the toolbar right here, where you can adjust, you can move it forward, backwards, and you can adjust the sound. You can make it full screen. And as they always do in here, come on, what they will show you, or hopefully what they'll show you when my page turns, is they also show you the HTML to do this. And if we look at it, there is the video and there is the audio right there. Afterwards, they show you, as always, as they always do, the associated CSS for this as well. All right. And I think that's it, but yep, it is. So let me show you on here on the one that I did, and it's the index page. So let me open that up. Because mine, I think, if I did it the way I think I did it, is going to look a little different. All right, there's mine. And you're like, well, how the hell did you get that? Well, I'll show you. It's not a trick, but I'll show you how you can do something like that. All right? And that is, so let's assume for a second that I go out to YouTube and I want to put in, I'm just going to grab whatever comes up here first. All right, so Stephen Colbert. So let's say on this one. So I'm going to just bring this one up. All right. If this offends any of you, I'm sorry, but I find him funny. All right. So there it is. I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to go to where it says share. I'm going to click on where it says share, and it's got the URL. So that's the URL if I wanted to literally link to it. Okay. But I'm going to click here where it says embed, and what that does, is I'm just going to literally I grabbed all that code. I'm going to come in here into Visual Studio Code right here. I'm going to create a new file. And I'm going to quickly save it. Onto my desktop. And I'm going to save it as Colbert.html. All right, I'm going to come in here and put in my stuff. I'm not going to change anything, but all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that and I'm going to paste that in here. All right, and I'm going to format it a little so you can see everything that's in here. Now, some of the stuff that's in here, I'm not going to lie to you, I don't know what it means because I've never really cared. But the width of it on my screen should be 560 pixels. The height should be 315 pixels. It should go out to YouTube and it should find this. There won't be any border around it. It should have all my controls, the autoplay, etc. And there should be a thing on the bottom to allow it to have full screen. Does all that make sense? So I'm just going to right mouse click and I'm going to choose Open with Live Server. Try to choose Open with Live Server. Let's do a file save first. In fact, let's do it like this. I don't know why, but it's funky. So, desktop. There's Colbert.html. And there it is. And literally, that's all there is to it. Now, again, I can't say this to you too many times. He may have something in his, a disclaimer in there that says, if you want to use this, you've got to do this or whatever. I'm not like a CNN where I can just grab stuff. But if I'm doing it for a demonstration purpose in a classroom, it's typically okay. But I can't say this too many times. Once you go out, because you know GitHub Pages now, next year you're going to learn Heroku, and you can start pushing your own stuff out to the web. If you push stuff out to the web and it isn't yours and you don't give attribution or you don't give attribution the way you're supposed to, you can get in trouble for it. I've said this, don't steal audio, don't steal video, don't steal images. Well, I have to have this. Then contact the person who owns them or the company that owns them and ask for permission. And get the permission in writing or at least in email format. All right? So let's take just a couple minutes and take a look at for way too much stuff on my desktop. Chapters 12 and 13, let's look at the homework and let's look at the labs, and then the rest of the period will be yours. So this is the chapter 12, I'm sorry, 13 and 14, not 12 and 13. We did 13 and 14 today. So forums. Write a web page that contains a music survey similar to the following picture. So make something that looks like that. All right. You want to do your own, that's fine. If you want to use the one I send you and make modifications, that's also fine. It's no big thing. Here's all the stuff you're supposed to do with it. You can read that yourselves. For Chapter 14, says use your cell phone or laptop to record a 1 minute or less long video. Transfer it to the homework repository inside a media folder. Use a video tag. You can do that. That's totally fine. If you'd rather just grab a clip from the internet, I don't care. All right. Now, maybe Mr. Gudmested is being more particular about this than I am. I don't know. But I don't see the need for you to do that. You can do it if you want to. I don't care. All right, but I don't think you have to do that. All right, so those are the two homeworks. Let's quickly look at the two labs. Now they'll say on here, and please don't let this throw you. It says, the lab here is to build and deploy the first version of your web portfolio. You don't expect it to have much in it. Now this says it should be using Bootstrap. Well, that's why it's not due yet, because we haven't gone over Bootstrap. I believe what Mr. Gudmested has done is he's doing the Bootstrap before he's doing 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. I could be wrong. He has a video out there, a half-hour-long video on his own introduction to Bootstrap. And, you know, I'm just going to show you this. And again, if you don't care, sorry, I'm wasting a couple minutes of your life. But if you go out to YouTube and you search for that guy, me, and you go out there and you find my channel, and you go out to the playlist for this class, which is Fall 2020 AWD Web Technologies. I shouldn't have went there.
All right, hello to anyone and everyone who may be watching this video. This very quickly.
But when you start looking through what's in here.
I'll do this in 2 or 3 minutes if possible.
All right, so what I should do, no thanks. Here, view full playlist. That's what I want, not to play it. But I mean, if you've never come out here, this is especially for those of you who have any kind of problems. I didn't put the 11 and 12. They're out there. They're ready to go. This is that whole WeSom thing that we did. There's chapters 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. All right, the GitHub thing we did much earlier in the semester, 3, 2, and 1. All right. Then I've got a 6-step series on HTML and HTML5 fundamentals. I've got a 6-step series on CSS and CSS3 fundamentals. I've got a 7-step series on JavaScript fundamentals, a bunch of stuff on the DOM, some jQuery. The reason I'm showing you this is I also went through, and there's several videos in here that are on Bootstrap. So all that stuff is in there. This is all stuff I've done. There's 110 total videos. Probably about 75 of those were ones that I created before the semester started, and they're the ones I'm showing you now. They're down at the bottom. I try to do this where I put them at least in some kind of an order. All right? You're always welcome if you want to, and if you don't, fine. You can subscribe to my channel. I'm up to, I think my next one will put me at 100. And I'm way behind Evan because he's almost at 1,000. All right, but it's funny because probably my last 10 or 15 have been from people who have names I can't pronounce. So if you told me they were from another country, I'd believe you. All right. Okay, if there are no questions, the rest of the period is yours. And again, you know what you should be doing. And lastly, you know tomorrow we're going to be going over those written tests. All right, I am going to ask that when we go over those, because you're going to be grading your own, that you put away all pencils, all paper, or other than your test page, and I'm going to give you a red pen. So again, as I said yesterday, don't do your tests in red pen. All right? Questions? All right, the rest of the period then is yours.